everybody. We're talking about Game Maker, and in Game Maker, I've done 3 videos on managing score, health, and lives. And in each time I've done it, I've been a little unsatisfied with it. And so I'm going to try my 3rd attempt to deal with score, health, and lives. Every way that we do this, there's always a drawback. There's always some complication. I think I found what is, in my opinion, going to be the easiest to work with, but I could be wrong, and I'm willing to admit it if I am. Okay, so we're going to talk about managing score, health, and lives. And in order to do it, this is talking about setting the beginning of the game as well as continuing throughout and managing. Are we losing any lives? Do we have to restart any rooms? Is the game over or not? And so in order to do this, we're actually going to create 2 separate objects. We are not going to use the hero to do this. These are going to be separate objects, and I'm going to either make it a sprite so we can identify it and label it, or I'm thinking it might be better just to leave the sprite out altogether, and you'll see why in a moment. The first object we're going to create is the control. We're going to call them both controllers. We're going to call it controller start. Now, this is largely what Mark Overmars, who created Game Maker, this is how he does it, but I'm adding one little twist, and I'll explain why. Although maybe he actually, for all I know, I might have misread his first tutorial. But controller start will do a thing called initialize. It's going to set our global variables. And you might be going, well, what is global variable anyway? A global variable is a variable that is tied into the game as a whole. Global means it exists outside of any given object. It's part of the game itself. And Game Maker has 3 variables that are a part of the game that you can adjust, but you cannot create or delete, and you cannot give these to other objects. It's part of the game itself. That is score, health, and lives. And the major drawback to Game Maker is because it's a global variable, score, health, and lives, and there's only one for each, that means it's a lot more difficult to have a 2-player or 3 or 4-player game or multiplayer game. The score, health, and lives is reserved for the game itself. So if it's a single-player game, no big deal, right? But anyways, we're just going to focus on that as a 1-player game anyway. Now, the controller start, we're going to place it in the very first room we create, and that room needs to be like a splash page. Now, the splash page is going to be the title room. It's going to have the title of the game with instructions and probably a play button and maybe an info button or something like that. Okay. Now, the key here for controller start is what we're going to do is we're going to put it in a room that doesn't have any actual gameplay going on. And there is a reason for it. The reason why is when we initialize our variables, we're going to use the create event. That create event gets triggered when you start or restart a room, even if you go out a few rooms and come back. When you come back, if you go back to the room that has this controller start, it will reset everything. And you're not going to want that to happen to the game. So you don't want to put it in a room where there's action taking place. Okay? So that's why we put it in a title room. We're actually going to have to create that room. Now, controller main, this is the thing that's going to be managing throughout the game to determine whether the game is over or not. You're going to use this one object to display the score, health, and lives in every room. You're also going to check to see what happens, or check to see if there's any, if we run out of health or not. We're also going to check to see if it runs out of lives. Now, you tell me, what happens if we lose all of our health? What just happened? Yeah, we just died, and what did we just lose? A life. We're going to have to make sure we haven't lose a life. And what happens if we have no more lives?
We die. The game's over.
Game's over, man, right? It's over, right? Your game is over. So this will manage that, okay? The other thing, guys, is we're going to place it in one room only. One room only. We're going to put it in the very first maze room, or if you're doing a different kind of game, you want to put it in the first room where action takes place, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to put it in one room, but we're going to check it. We're going to make it persistent. What persistent means is it will exist in all of our rooms. So once you put it in one room, it will persist throughout the rest of the game, and it will keep being in the same location. Now, there's going to be no sprite attached to it, so it won't really matter where we put it in the room, okay? So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so if you go into your Game Maker project and you've already started it, it might look something like this. So I'm in my Game Maker, and at this point, I do have a hero, I have a block, and I use the block and the hero to sort of start creating my first room. And I'm not even done crafting this first room, okay? But that's okay, I don't need to, because we're going to add a new object. So let's go ahead and add our two objects first. So I'm going to right-click on the folder and create an object. And like I said, we're going to name this a little different. It's a controller start. And then I'm going to create another object. I'll do it a different way. I'll click on the little blue sphere. And we're going to call this controller main. Now, I told you it's going to be persistent. The main controller, and notice if I hover over it, it'll say whether the object is persistent between rooms. So this allows us to put it in one room and know it's going to exist for the rest of the game. And that's a very important step. Now let's go back to the controller start. It is not persistent. In fact, you do not want that persistent. In fact, you want it in a room that doesn't have any game action going on. So go ahead and just create your two objects, and then I'll tell you what to do next. All right, let's go ahead and do our controller start because this initializes the game. So we have one event that we're concerned with, and that is create. On the create event, we want to set score, health, and lives. So you add an event, you choose create. And then we click on score, and we're going to grab the three, set score, set lives, set health. Drag them over. At the beginning of the game, you have no points. We're going to set score to 0, leave relative unchecked, and click OK. Set score to 0. Grab lives. Now, your choice how many lives there are in this game. Is it 3? Is it 1? Is it 5? Pick something. I'm going to choose 3. That's what I'm used to. I'm kind of old school that way. Do not check relative either. And that sets our lives at 3 to begin with. And then finally, health. If you have any intention of drawing a health bar, put in 100. If you have no intention of drawing a health bar, go ahead and put 100 in anyway because it works like a percentage. So we can always go, oh, we have 100% health at the beginning anyway. And at the beginning, we're at 100%. As we start losing our health, it goes down and it will look like a percentage. I think that's the way to do it, but it's really your choice ultimately. Okay? So 3 actions on create for our controller start. It sets score to 0, lives to 3, health to 100. We are done with our controller start. Let's turn our attention now to controller main. Controller main, we do not need a create event. Actually, let's go ahead and do a create event anyway. Now, create event happens the first time it appears in a room, and it just persists throughout because we made it persistent. Now, in the create event, what we're going to do is we want to show our score, health, and lives. And to do that, under health, there's this SLH. That's our score caption. Just drag it out. Now, there are some important settings you want to leave in here. If we have lives, we need to show them. So change it from don't show to show. See how you just click that little window there? Same thing goes for health. Change it from don't show to show. And so now we're going to have a caption for each one. Caption is what it says before the score, the lives, and the health. Leave it like that, then click OK. Here's where it gets interesting, guys. What we're going to do now is we need to check for score, health, and lives. The question is, what event is going to trigger that checking for score, health, and lives? Well, if we go to event, you might look for it and you might not see it on first look. But in actuality, it's under other. This is an event. If you click on other, you will see no more lives, no more health. Let's begin with health. Okay, if we run out of health, there are a couple things we need to do. Number 1, we need to take a life away because if we lose all of our health, that means we just died once. We want to get rid of our lives. However, unfortunately, if we get to the part where we have no more health and we start losing lives, this no more health is going to be checked 30 times a second. So in the span of 1 second, we're going to lose 30 lives if we don't do something about it.
That's not good.
Nope, not good at all. So if there's no more health, grab the little lives, set lives. Now, you're going to make it relative because we're going to change it from what it was before and put the minus sign and 1. So we're going to set lives to -1 and we're going to check relative. So each time we lose a life, all right, I'm sorry, when we lose our life, it will be 1 less than what we had before. Then click OK. Okay, well, once we lose 1 life, we are going to need to reset our health. If we don't do that, we're going to keep losing lives. So to reset, we're doing what's called a hard reset. We're going to set it exactly to 100, so do not check relative this time. So you'll see, set lives relative to -1, health to 100, and personally, I think we should restart the current room and make them start over again. Don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's do that. That is under main 1, excuse me. And restart the room is the one that has the arrow pointing up. It's under main 1, rooms. Restart is the top right of our rooms. And if we want a little effect going on, we can do some kind of an effect here. You're going to have to test this out a little bit later. Right now, we don't have one to do it. I'm just going to blend and click OK. You could leave the animation off if you wanted to. All right, so that's if we have no more health. Now, the other thing is we need to do what happens when there's no more lives. Okay, so it's also an other. So go to events and check add event, other, no more lives. So go ahead and do that now. Okay, if we've run out of all of our lives, the game is in essence over. I'd like you to go to score, and I'd like you to get the show high score. That's right under score. It's 1, 2, 3. Drag it out. If you want to edit it, you could add a background image, but you would have to load it up under backgrounds, save it, name it, and then you would load it here. If you want to show the border, you can choose between showing it or not. If we want to change the color for what happens if it's a new score, we can do that there using the color picker. And we can do the same thing for our other colors. And we can even change our fonts by changing it in here. So I'm just going to change it to Trebuchet MS. I like that size. No, not Comic Sans. All right, at this point, high scores table. If you want to just end the game, you can just go to main 2, under game, it's right here. So that's main 2, under game, drag it over. So show high scores table, end the game. That's the most simplistic way to do it. Okay, so I'm now at the part I've created these objects. We need to place them in the rooms, but I'm getting low on time. And I know there's more I want to do anyway. So in my next video, I'm going to show you creating the title page room. We're going to have to put a start button in there that takes us to the first room. And we'll have to put our controller main in that first room and test it out to see if it's working right. And we're probably going to need some dangerous objects that we can run into and hurt us. So we've got a little bit of work to do.